Hey guys, what's up? It's iFlynn here, and today we're going to be learning everything you need to know about Nova and Nova Prime in Warframe. Hey guys, welcome back to the Everything You Need to Know About guide. In this episode, we're going to be talking about one of my favorite frames and most used frames, Nova. She's a very versatile frame, meaning she can be used for a multitude of different things, but before we get into what Nova is good for, I just wanted to remind you guys about the monthly giveaway that happens on my channel. The link is in the description below. The giveaway is for 1000 Platinum and it's for any platform. All you need to do to enter is subscribe to me on YouTube, follow me on Twitch, and then follow myself and the @play Warframe account on Twitter, and then boom, you have 4 entries into a 1000 Platinum giveaway. It benefits all of us. Make sure to also check out the description for links to my social media where I post pictures of my dog and announce when I'm live on Twitch and stuff like that. The Twitch schedule can also be found down there too. Okay, so ignoring all the shameless self-promotion, Nova. This is a frame that I recommend everybody picks up as early as possible because of how easy she makes the entire game. She has damage reduction, she has damage, she has mobility, she has crowd control, she has really good looking skins and helmets, you name it, Nova has it. The main reason people pick up Nova is for her M Prime ability or her 4th ability, which is a crowd controlling debuffing ability that slows the enemies down by 75% and makes them easier to kill. On top of this, when you kill the enemies, they actually explode, creating a chain reaction, which makes sense because she is a frame based around Antimatter, some chemistry thing that I don't really know a lot about. I feel chemistry. Leave me alone. Potassium. Chemistry people will get that joke. Spoiler, it wasn't really funny. Okay, so instead of me embarrassing myself with really bad chemistry related puns, let's move on to Nova's stats at level 30. Keep in mind that everything that I say in this video is subject to change, and it's worth checking the description of this video for useful links to up-to-date information sources such as the Warframe wiki or follow-up videos that I might have made to make the channel up-to-date. At level 30, Nova has 300 health, 225 shields, 65 armor, 225 energy, a 1.2 sprint speed, 2v polarities in her modding section, and a dash on her aura. If you're lucky enough to have Nova Prime, who's now vaulted and will be unvaulted at a later date, she has 300 health, 300 shields, 65 armor, 262 energy, a 1.2 sprint speed, 3v polarities in her modding section, and then a dash in her aura. Like I mentioned beforehand, Nova Prime is currently vaulted, which is unfortunate, but you can still obtain her by purchasing the relics you need to farm her or her part blueprints from other players who are around whenever her relics were available to farm. If you don't have the platinum to do that, you can farm regular Nova's parts from the Raptor boss on Europa on the node Nama. For new players, this fight can be a little bit difficult, but there are easy ways to complete it, such as using Excalibur's Radio Blind ability to blind the Raptors and dish out a lot of damage to it with a weapon such as the Redeemer, which doubles as a melee weapon and a shotgun. The drop chance for her parts are as follows. Her neuroptics have a 38.72% drop chance along with her chassis, and then her systems have a 22.56% drop chance. To craft regular Nova, you're going to need a total of 105,000 credits. This is including the blueprint costs, 800 rubido, 1000 ferrite, 500 salvage, 600 plastids, 150 polymer bundles, 150 alloy plates, 2 morphics, a control module, a neural sensor, and finally an Oracle cell. To craft Nova Prime, you're going to need 70,000 credits, 1000 polymer bundles, 600 ferrite, 500 circuits, 500 plastids, 400 nanospores, 200 rubido, 2 morphics, a control module, a neural sensor, and finally a single Oracle cell. On the day of writing this script, which is the 26th of the 2nd, 2018, Nova Prime sets, meaning all the blueprints needed to craft Nova Prime, are being sold for 300 platinum on Warframe.market. So about now, you're probably saying to yourself, Flynn, alright, cool, I know the stats, I know how to get her and craft her, but what is the frame actually good for? And the answer to that question is pretty much everything. Like on a real level, Nova is probably one of the most versatile frames in the game because she offers so much potential in the form of mobility, damage dealing, crowd control, and even a little bit of tanking. What you will mainly see a Nova player doing in public matches is using her M Prime ability, the 4th one, to either slow down or speed up the enemies depending on what you're doing. For example, if you're leveling your weapons on Hydron on Sedna, chances are the Nova player there is most likely using Nova's speed build, which is a build centered around getting negative power strength so M Prime speeds up the enemies rather than slowing them down. This speeds up the overall process of leveling. If you see a Nova in a higher level defense mission, however, chances are they're going to be playing a slow Nova. This Nova will have at least 145% power strength on their build, and each cast of M Prime will slow the enemies down for a maximum of 75% movement speed. To get more of a grip on what Nova is all about, let's talk about all of her different abilities now. Her first ability is called Null Star. This ability will create 6 antimatter particles that will orbit around Nova and seek out nearby enemies within 12 meters and deal up to 200 slash damage. On top of that, every antimatter particle that is orbiting around Nova will grant her 5% damage reduction, so at base with no mods, Nova will have 30% damage reduction from a single cast of Null Star. With this ability, you want to be focusing on having as many antimatter particles as possible, as the damage that it deals is not really worth modding for. It's better to seek out the damage reduction that the ability provides instead. Funnily enough, the amount of antimatter particles you can have on your Nova is affected by power duration mods, which is good because we're going to be modding mainly for power duration in our M Prime build that I'll show later on. The amount of damage that each antimatter particle deals is affected by power strength mods, and the attack radius is affected by power range mods. Null Star has an augment for it known as Neutron Star. This augment and all of Nova's other augments can be obtained from the Steel Meridian Syndicate at the rank of General, or from the Cephalon Suda Syndicate at the rank of Genius for 25,000 standing. Neutron Star is an augment that will allow the player to recast Null Star to make all remaining antimatter particles explode and deal 120 blast damage with a guaranteed blast proc within 8 meters. This augment is 100% not worth picking up, as the damage does not scale well at all, and you don't really need any extra crowd control effects on Nova, as she has one of the best crowd control abilities in the game anyway. The only real justification I can make for this mod is the fact that it allows you to recast Null Star. This means that you'll be able to get your damage reduction buff back without having to wait for all of your antimatter particles to attack the enemies before you can recast the ability. Nova's second ability is called Antimatter Drop. This is a damage dealing ability where Nova will launch a ball of antimatter that will absorb incoming damage and explode on collision with a surface or enemy, dealing a base 200 damage, then plus 400% of all absorbed damage as radiation damage for a radius of 15 meters. The ball of antimatter that Nova launches from her hand can be directed using your crosshair. It's also worth noting that you can only store up to 50,000 damage in one particle. After absorbing the maximum amount of damage, the particle will move a lot faster, and it will also look as if it was filled up, like the color will become solid. The base damage of Antimatter Drop is affected by power strength mods, however the multiplier for your damage, so that extra 400% of stored damage, cannot be changed, otherwise the ability would be a tiny bit overpowered. Ability range actually does not affect the explosion radius of this ability, so if you're building around this ability and this ability alone, throwing on as much power strength mods as possible will be the most beneficial option. There's an augment for Antimatter Drop known as Antimatter Absorb, which adds a bullet attracting element to Antimatter Drop. This augment mod, in my opinion, is also not worth picking up, as you're able to fully charge your Antimatter Drop with a few shots from pretty much any shotgun in the game. Nova's third ability is called Wormhole. This ability will allow the player to create a wormhole that will teleport them to the location that they are aiming at up to 50 meters away at base. Each wormhole has a total of 4 uses and has a duration of 16 seconds. The range in which a single wormhole can teleport you is affected by power range mods, and the duration of the wormhole is affected by power duration mods. Wormhole has an augment for it known as Escape Velocity. This augment will provide the player with a 50% movement speed boost after leaving a wormhole. This movement speed bonus will last for 7 seconds. The power of the speed boost is not affected by power strength mods, however it does stack with other movement speed buffs that you may have, such as Volt Speed ability. The duration of the speed boost is affected by power duration mods, and the timer of your speed boost will reset with every wormhole that you pass through. Nova's final ability is known as Molecular Prime, or M Prime for people who don't want to embarrass themselves trying to pronounce the overly complicated word. Just imagine how bad I feel. I have to say it perfectly while recording on top of all this other stuff, which I'm just making it even more difficult for myself by adding this line into the script, but if you're hearing this, then I most likely did it perfectly after like 50 attempts. Anyway, when Nova casts M Prime, she lets out a wave of molecular energy that will expand around the casting position at a speed of 5 meters per second for a total of 6 seconds before disappearing. All enemies in range are coated in antimatter that will slow them down by 30% for 30 seconds. Once an enemy who is primed is killed, they will detonate, dealing 800 blast damage to any enemy within 10 meters of them. Any enemy that is affected by M Prime will also take 200% extra damage, so you can kinda see now that this ability is really insane, and it only gets better when you throw mods on. The amount that an enemy is slowed by, and the explosion damage that is dealt once an enemy is killed, is affected by power strength mods. How long your M Prime expands for and how long enemies stay primed for is affected by power duration mods. And finally, the range of the explosions that happen when you kill an enemy is affected by power range mods. As mentioned beforehand, you can actually speed enemies up with this ability by modding for negative power strength, that being power strength below 100%. All you have to do to achieve this is throw on a max rank overextended into your build with no power strength mods equipped, and there you go, the enemies will be sped up upon casting M Prime instead of being slowed down. So that was probably a lot to take in, but I promise Nova is a very easy frame to mod and understand. I'm going to show you guys 4 builds. The first is my Sluva build. This build is centered around using M Prime to slow down enemies by 75%. This is the build that I'll normally use when I'm playing with newer players who may need help killing some higher level enemies that they may not be ready to take on yet. This ability or build just makes the game a breeze, as we have over 300% ability duration, 145% power strength, which gives us the maximum slow amount for our M Prime, and it's pretty efficient. We have Prime Continuity, Constitution, Narrow-Minded, and Augur Message for our ability duration to make M Prime expand for a total of 16 seconds, Intensify and Power Drift to get our power strength to our minimum 145% for our 75% slow, Vitality for health, Prime Flow for energy, and Streamline so we can cast our abilities for less energy. The aura mod that you're using in this build really depends on what you're doing. If you're helping newer players, you're going to want to run Energy Siphon, as chances are you're going to be playing against lower level enemies anyway. If you're using Nova at endgame in the Void, for example, having a Corrosive Projection equipped to reduce the enemy's armor by 30% might not be a bad idea. Pair that with the fact that primed enemies take double the damage from all incoming sources of damage, then you'll feel pretty powerful. Next up, we have my Antimatter drop build. This build is focused around M-priming our enemies and then destroying their health with 2 or 3 casts of Antimatter drop. With this build, you're also going to want to use a shotgun so you can build up the damage in your Antimatter drop as soon as possible. On this build, I'm running Transient Fortitude, Intensify, Augur Secrets, and Power Drift for as much power strength as possible to up the base damage of our Antimatter drop. Narrow-Minded and Prime Continuity for the duration on our M Prime, taking us up to 13 seconds. Streamline so we can cast our abilities more often. Vitality for our health, Prime Flow for energy, and then finally Corrosive Projection on the aura. If you want, you can replace Augur Secrets for Fleeting Expertise so you can cast Antimatter drop more often. At that point, you want to be running a 1 from the top Fleeting and a 1 for the top Streamline. That way you have more leftover mod capacity, so you start off with more energy at the beginning of the mission, and you'll have saved up to 10% extra duration while still hitting the power efficiency cap. My third build is my Wormhole or Escape Velocity build. This build is centered around using Wormhole to just speedrun through missions while still making M Prime and Null Star useful. We have Intensify equipped for the slow on our M Prime. This will debuff the enemy's movement speed by 60%. Prime Continuity and Constitution for the duration on our M Prime and our Escape Velocity augments movement speed buff. Stretch to make our Wormhole shoot us further with each cast. Streamline to make our portals cost as little energy as possible. Vitality for health, Prime Flow for energy, and an Ice Spring for faster bullet jumps and more momentum in mid-air. On this build, I recommend running Energy Siphon on the aura, so if you're speedrunning, you don't have to stop and use energy pads to get your energy back as often as you would if you weren't using Energy Siphon. My final build is my Speed Nova build, which I actually have on my regular version of Nova rather than my Prime, just because I did the polarities up differently. On this build, I'm running Constitution, Narrow-Minded, Prime Continuity, and Augur Message for the duration of my M Prime, Streamline for more frequent casts, Overextended put our power strength below 100% so we get the speed effect, Vitality for health, Prime Flow for energy, Cunning Drift to increase the radius of the explosions that occur when we kill an enemy, and then finally Energy Siphon in the aura, but as mentioned beforehand, the aura mod you use heavily depends on what you're doing. Usually with this build, I'm using it to speed up enemies that have no armor, but if you're using it to speed up armored enemies such as the Grenier or enemies in the Void for example, you're going to want to use Corrosive Projection to make that less of a headache for you. And with all that being said, that is everything you need to know about Nova and Nova Prime in Warframe. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode. The next one will be uploaded at 6 p.m. GMT tomorrow. You're going to notice that this is a trend with these videos unless like something super insane pops up, like I don't know, a new frame or update or something that we 110% have to talk about. Anyway, check out the links in the description below. Follow me on all my social media platforms. I might post pictures of my golden retriever sometimes. Who knows? Totally worth it. Enter into the giveaway that I mentioned at the start of the video. Leave a like if you liked it. Subscribe for more Warframe videos on a daily basis, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Nova's final ability is known as Nova's final ability is known as molecular. Nova's final ability is known as molecular. Nova's final ability is known as Molecular Prime.